which sapped her energy. Wondering about the importance of breathing, she pushed the weight away, knowing that stopping may mean death. Regardless, she was not terrified. She exhaled, finding it amusing that people thought breathing was so important. In that moment, she felt shockingly alive. Her heartbeat ceased, replaced by a pleasant buzz, a sound caused by her nervous system's shutdown. As her breaths came to a close, bright light on her forehead caught her attention, intensifying until it totally enveloped her in a strangely familiar and soothing way. She felt warmth and comfort rather than a blinding sensation as she was surrounded by a brilliant light resembling multiple suns shining their shine on her. As she embraced this light, she felt an overwhelming sensation of love and calm. Elevated above her room, she saw her husband in the kitchen, aware of her serious sickness, but not fully understanding its significance. Despite the heartbreaking departure, she felt he would find love again and start a new family. She was filled with gratitude for her parents and relatives. Instead of a sad departure, it became an opportunity to express gratitude, love, and appreciation. Then another presence appeared. Not a family member, but a guide for her life evaluation. At 29, she was unaware of life reviews or near-death encounters. They examined key occasions in her life, distinguishing between behaviors motivated by her heart and those affected by her ego. The anguish of recalling times where ego dominated, such as being cruel to a kindergarten friend, was intense. However, times of acting from the heart and soul, full of love and joy, provided warmth. After reflecting on her life, she visited a region that was neither completely black nor wholly lightless. It was strange to have any traces of light there. She had a deep encounter that offered vital knowledge while being guided by 4 souls. It seemed precious, as if I had received a nonverbal box of understanding. A sense of obligation to apply this newly acquired information constructively evolved. After assimilating the download, she got a better awareness of herself and a shared purpose. Profound sensation of unity with everyone, filled with love, infinite joy, and comfort. Time seemed insignificant. Years had passed. However, a stray idea broke this harmony. A light approached, symbolizing a portion of her developing attachments. Passing through her, she was transported to the ultimate reality of love. In a pivotal moment, she had a deep shift, abandoning every aspect of her moto identity. Her sense of self, hobbies, and prior experiences gradually dissolved, revealing a limitless soul connected to the cosmos, enveloped in pure love, pleasure, and tranquility. This insight signaled the beginning of a profound shift. Following this epiphany, she heard a voice reverberating in her mind, like complicated ideas. The voice communicated a clear message. It was not her time to be in that wonderful environment. She was summoned back to the physical world for a greater purpose, to assist and uplift those in need. She initially resisted the call, but soon accepted it, leaving her state of togetherness and contentment. Returning to her body was not something she did on her own. A tremendous force led her back from the spiritual realm into the world of the living. She was suddenly back in her earthly body, feeling the agony and trials of life yet being unmistakably alive. Sharing this incident with her husband was difficult. The complexity of her experience made it difficult to express, and she worried about seeming odd. She eventually grasped the critical role of communicating the message. They both recognized their common goal: to connect with their inner selves and spread unconditional love. This understanding marked the end of a journey that included not only personal growth but also enlightenment. It became a source of hope and inspiration, exposing the immense potential inside each of us to push above our limitations and embrace the vast unity of the human spirit. A woman died in water and had an amazing heavenly experience. An extraordinary encounter occurred during a daring expedition in the Wild West, where an irrigation ditch, an unexpected shelter for seekers of respite from Arizona's scorching 115 degrees Fahrenheit heat, served as the background for a brush with mortality. Amidst a throng of a few hundred similar spirits, my friend and I set off on a voyage that would take us beyond the conventional boundaries of adventure. The routine consisted of taking an inner tube, leaping into the water on a slant, and enjoying the ride down. The aim was to get out before hitting stormy waters and rocks. All was okay until the third descent. I lost my inner tube, found myself underwater, and began somersaulting indefinitely. As someone who had never opened my eyes underwater, I was unable to distinguish between up and down when caught in the undercurrent. After what seemed like an eternity, I couldn't hold my breath any longer, embracing the fact that I was about to die. Suddenly, I was no longer in my body and had reached an entirely different space. Despite the darkness, I could see without using my eyes. Despite the absence of a physical body, my thoughts, feelings, emotions, and personality persisted. Strangely, there was no fear, just curiosity. Surveying the surroundings, it appeared to be a dark area of around 12 by 15 feet with a silky soft feel. Gazing to the top left, I noticed a pinpoint of light, which piqued my curiosity. Moving in that direction, an enormous knowing grew, complete assurance that this pinpoint of light was God, the driving force behind everything. It felt like the creator of all things, my Father, and I were a child. The desire to get to this point, to return home, was tremendous. Zooming in, the pinpoint grew into a gigantic ball of dazzling energy and light. I smashed into it, merging with this massive ball of loving light energy that exuded an incredible sense of unconditional love, ecstasy, and joy. The memory of this encounter is vivid, creating a wonderful, tingling sensation and a sense of rapture beyond words. It goes far beyond what you can fathom on earth. I became so full with it that when I believed there was no room for more, we began to drift apart somewhat. It felt as if he was my father, and I was a child. I was full of questions, and they were all answered. We communicated telepathically, using words that I could hear but not speak. God replied, "We're going to look at the life that you just left." I assumed it was serious. A television screen appeared on the left, and God held the remote. It began playing with my life, and I became immersed in it in a new way. I was reliving it and feeling various things. We came to a halt at major learning occasions, prompting me to reflect and learn. I felt like the worst person, but God asked, "What did you learn from this?" We talked a lot, and it took a while to go through it. My life review, however brief, just 20 years, made me a more empathetic person. Asked, "What now?" God replied, "You've got to go back. It's not your time." I objected, wishing to stay. God reminded me of my family and shifted my attention below. I saw my father, mother, and younger brother. Imagined what it would be like for them to learn that I had died. It went beyond anything I wanted to be responsible for. Jumped away and said, "No." God said, "Okay." I asked, "What will I do?" He said, "You will help me by showing love to people." I wished I had asked for a manual or examples since I was perplexed for many years. I attempted to figure out how I could express my love to others. Did I hug everybody or get a fancy degree and write books? It seemed huge. What I realized was that it did not need to be great. It manifests itself in everyday relationships by demonstrating kindness, love, and attentive listening. It's simple and satisfying. Before I left, I made a request. Asked God, could we get back together like when I first got here? He consented, and we merged back into the enormous ball of loving light energy. The limitless, unconditional love was amazing. I was blasted back into my body and performed somersaults underwater. Fortunately, I heard God's voice saying, "Hold your breath for a little while longer." Someone on the shore drew me out, and I emerged coughing. I still had no recollection of the encounter. I avoided the water, eager to return home and tell my parents how much I adored and valued them. They inquired, "Where's our daughter?" I went on to live a more compassionate life, eventually discovering the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Attended experiencer retreats, where I met other people who had had near-death experiences. Overall, it was a beautiful, enriching event that I'm delighted to share with you. She was gone, but she got a second chance. Everyone. She is from a family with a history of heart attacks. She recognized at a young age that excessive cholesterol and blood pressure might cause plaque accumulation and heart attacks. Her doctor booked her for an EKG, which revealed mild ischemia. But she was cleared for the next 5 years. Her sister, a nurse, advised her that heart abnormalities might not be detected by EKGs and insisted on heart catheterization or X-rays. She persevered for 5 months, pleading with her primary physician to schedule the necessary X-rays, even threatening him. Finally, the doctor scheduled a cardiac catheterization for her on March 1, 2006. During the surgery, it was determined that 3 of her arteries were 80% obstructed. Her cardiologist scheduled a heart stent treatment on March 16, 2006, as a less invasive alternative to open heart surgery. Unfortunately, during the stent insertion, a small hole was accidentally punched into her heart, resulting in severe bleeding. Unaware of this, she was returned to the intensive care unit, where she developed serious difficulties. Her companion, a nurse, encouraged her not to be alone in the hospital, which proved vital. The nurse provided morphine, and she became unconscious. However, her buddy observed concerning symptoms such as dilated pupils and a dip in blood pressure. A code blue was issued, and emergency procedures were implemented to stabilize her. The doctor extracted 3 bags of blood from her thoracic cavity during the next 24 hours. She recalled a gloomy time followed by a great sensation of serenity, similar to taking her final breath. Later, she saw a brilliant and dazzling light, symbolic of the journey from life to the afterlife. In that timeless instant, she found herself on a dark stage, as if a bright spotlight was beaming on her. Her soul appeared to communicate with God telepathically after she believed she had died. She began to pray, seeking forgiveness and expressing a desire to live longer. As she finished, an angelic face with a gorgeous grin appeared and reassured her that everything would be fine. She could not tell if it was a nurse, an angel, or her spirit re-entering her body. Soon after, she heard a nurse announce that her pulse had returned, and after 4 days in the hospital, her cardiologist discharged her. The nurse explained that a tiny hole created when a stent nicked her heart, resulting in cardiac arrest. During those critical moments, prayers from a loved one and a clergyman in the waiting room appeared to play a part in her survival. Grateful for a second shot at life, she tells her story, highlighting the comfort she felt during the trauma and the love she received. Moving on to her second experience, she found herself in the company of the deceased. She was never sure how she got there, but she was always accompanied by someone. Recognizing familiar faces, she felt sheer joy in being herself without the limitations of a physical body. A voice encouraged her to think about the earth, and an image of the lovely autumn trees in western New York came to mind. Without saying, she acknowledged Earth's beauty with her thoughts, which were audible and understood by all around her. She then looked at herself and thought, that body wasn't that horrible, admitting her weight problem. She also saw her husband and 4 children, feeling compelled to return but resisting the urge. Despite her inner turmoil, she struck a compromise, vowing to return only if she could vividly remember the encounter. The reaction was affirmative, but she quickly regretted her decision as the draw became stronger. In defiance, she decided to return but insisted on taking a longer route. As she traveled back, she saw future events in her life. She approached the hospital and descended via the roof, viewing people on various floors. Eventually, she found herself in the operating room, watching physicians and nurses work on her lifeless body. Despite her resistance, she was drawn back into her body, drawing a breath, and felt the anguish of life return. As she walked out of the recovery room, tears flowed down her cheeks, and she wished for the calming presence of the hereafter. Speaking in tongues, she sought to remember that peaceful place where love and beauty were beyond words. She told the nurse in English that she didn't want to return. The nurse, conscious of her responsibilities as a mother, reminded her that a baby needed her. See how angels resurrected him with a message from Jesus when death seemed certain. Today, we'll hear a story about a man who meets Jesus after death. Jesus, in turn, summons angels to guard him. Please take a time to relax, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's look into this story. After falling on a metal grating, he felt himself rise, separate from his body, and float above it. The people below, stunned in disbelief, assumed he was dead. Looking down, he saw his three-dimensional body, which contrasted sharply with conventional flat mirror reflections and photographs. Despite the horrific sight, he felt no pain. Instead, he felt whole and free, recognizing, "This is who I truly am." When he saw his lifeless body, he felt a flood of compassion. He wanted to assure the observers that everything would be fine. He felt a sudden tug away from Earth, seeing individuals from China, Sweden, and Uruguay sleeping, dreaming, cooking, commuting, working, and playing all at once. He observed childbirth and found it quite moving. He watched a variety of human activities, including religious prayers, quiet prayers, and indigenous tribes drumming and chanting. God sent countless angels to Earth to answer numerous prayers. Moving farther into the light, he saw Earth as a dazzling, pulsating being with apparent wounds, crying for a stop to the destruction. He was overcome with compassion and longed to console and heal Mother Earth. Despite feeling powerless at times, he also felt extremely capable, believing that nothing was beyond his reach. At that point, he questioned God, "What do you want me to do?" He was told that he needed to return to his physical body in order to achieve certain predetermined goals. He reasoned, "But I can't go back because my body is too far gone. It's beyond repair." He was also frightened that, despite his physical limitations, he would never be able to do what he could as a spirit form, which felt free and unconstrained. Feeling angry and afraid of returning to the darkness after witnessing such light, he felt the presence of Jesus Christ all around him, accompanied by an overpowering sense of love. It was like swimming through an ocean of joy. He said, "Do I really have to go back?" Christ responded that he, like everyone else, was part of God's perfect design, and his ultimate goal is to love and serve God and all sentient beings. He could tell that Christ understood all of his concerns and doubts. Christ informed him that his mending and rehabilitation would be a lifelong process, exposing an inner power he had not realized until now. To begin this journey, all he had to do was seek confidence, strength for life, and work endurance. This information was especially important to him because he had long struggled to find his place in the world, feeling like an outsider. He wanted for a place where he could express his strong dedication to current concerns, allowing him to make a little impact. Christ encircled him with intense brightness, promising to send guardian angels to aid in his rehabilitation, as well as provide counsel and protection. Suddenly, angels appeared, performing a mesmerizing symphony and shouting thanks to God. Some angels cried, a strange feeling that Jesus characterized as tears of pleasure for his new life on earth and sympathy for the difficulties he would face. He summoned the angels to help him return to earth and his physical body. Gratitude for Christ's presence alleviated his trepidation, instilling a long-term dedication to serving God's will. When he awoke, he discovered two well-dressed men, perhaps in their 40s, kneeling beside him with anxious expressions. Despite his first suspicions about their sexual orientation, he noticed their attractiveness and business executive appearance. One of the men, who knew first aid, watched his vital signs, assuring him that an ambulance was on its way and instructing him to keep motionless. They covered him in blood-stained garments, prompting a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. Despite the tattered garments, their presence brought a sense of security and protection. They waited at his side until the ambulance arrived, ensuring that he received proper care in the hospital. Despite his promise to replace their torn garments on 2 later visits, they declined, underlining that his survival was more important. Their very presence filled him with hope and strength. He was convinced that both guys represented the promised angels from Christ, a realization that was even more real than he could have anticipated. This concludes today's experience.